Celebration of life for our dear friend Paula. Paula Marie Constable Yeamans was born January 14th, 1932. She died August 3rd, 2024, 92 years old. It is with great sadness the family of Paula Yeamans remembers her in death. She leaves 4 daughters, P.J. Lowry, was married to Bob, Peggy Castle, Patricia Yeamans, and Pamela Clark, Don Polson. Also 4 grandchildren, Ann Griffin, Melissa England, married to Mike, Colby Clark, and Connor Clark. There are 5 great-grandchildren and 3 great-great-grandchildren, and in the future probably many more. She is predeceased by her parents, Garland and Avis Marie Constable, brothers Winton, Bill and Jack, and sisters Helen Camp, Beverly Radcliffe, Phyllis Zimmerman. Leaving home in Princeton, Missouri after high school in 1950, she attended business college where she met her lifetime love, Robert Jerry Yeamans. They began their family and a lifetime of achievements and adventures. Paula enjoyed sales where she sold eggs early in her life, then real estate, guaranteed foods programs, owned her own interior design store with furniture, carpet, flooring, and design services. Once retired in 1993, she and Jerry became full-time RVers, selling dolls and collectibles and traveling all over the U.S. Originally in the Shawnee, Kansas area, she and Jerry moved to Lake of the Ozarks for most of their working years. They retired and lived several places until eventually moving to Country Roads in Yuma, Arizona. It is at Country Roads where she joined a clown troupe, writers club, drama club, Christian mime performance, painting, Toastmasters, and women's fellowship. The Paula Yeamans family would like to thank their many friends in Country Roads and the Women's Fellowship who have supported the family through the past year as Paula's health declined. Also, the exceptional care from Hospice of Yuma, Trina Avalos TLC at Home Health Care, and Dignity Health Care. Jerry and Paula are interred at the Sacramento Valley National Cemetery in Dixon, California. So when I woke up this morning, I wanted to look my best for Paula's service. So I showered, I shaved, trimmed my goatee, trimmed my nose hairs, plucked a couple hairs out of my ears, and then I put on a nice long-sleeved dress shirt and a nice sweater and some black slacks, and I looked in the mirror and I said, boy, that looks great. And I said, but it feels wrong. I'm pretty sure Paula did not want me wearing that for her memorial service, so I found a shirt in the closet that Esther hates, but feels much more Paula-esque. I first met Paula a week shy of 3 years ago on her 90th birthday. I had never met her, and somebody posted on Facebook that there was going to be a birthday drive-by at her house. So I grabbed my ukulele and I figured I would sing her happy birthday. So I got there and there was this big blue and white balloon arch with the big numbers 90 at the top, and Paula was up there in a red parka looking quite regal underneath the arch. And I sang her happy birthday and I wished her many more to come. And she goes, oh, I don't. And I said, why not? And she says, well, I lost the love of my life not too long ago, and my life just feels so empty there, I'm ready to go today. And that started, we just clicked. And, excuse me, sometimes people just come into your life and you don't know why or where. But you know it's the start of a lifelong relationship. In this case, that lifelong relationship was only 3 years, but it was still there and it was important. And about 1.5 years later, checking in on her, and I just said, so Paula, how are you doing these days? And I loved her answer. She said, I feel like I'm discovering who I really am for the first time. So that was that was a wonderful recovery. To give you an example of what our friendship was like, on occasion I would look on Facebook and I would see that she had posted a picture of me, and the caption said, "My boyfriend." And in the comments somebody said, "How does Esther feel about that?" And Esther said, "Hey, it takes the pressure off me." And I felt so relieved by that because I was afraid she would say, "You can have him." So she was in hospice quite a while, and so I would visit a couple times there. And last July, Esther and I were near the end of a vacation. We were in Florida, and PJ contacted me. She said, "My mom would like you to come sing to her." And I said, "We'll be home in a few days, be happy to." So got home, checked with PJ, and she made the arrangements, and I went out to Hospice of Yuma. And Paula was there, and I probably sang 12, 13, 14 songs with my ukulele before she fell asleep, and we left. And excuse me for a second. About a week later, I felt like I needed to see Paula again. So I called PJ and asked if that would be okay, and she arranged for it. And she goes, "But you know, there's a number of women there are really pissed at you." And I said, "Why? What did I do?" She said, "Well, they heard you singing to Paula." And I was thinking, what's so special about Paula? What are we, chopped liver? So this time it was going to be a little more of a group gathering. So all the women and I and Paula were gathered in her room. And she was pretty much comatose by then. And so sang a number of songs, and we did a sing-along to Amazing Grace. And even though Paula was comatose, we knew she could hear and follow what was going on, because we'd get to the end of a line, we'd go, "Amazing grace, how sweet the..." And you'd hear, "Thumb!" So she was trying to sing along, and she could manage about one word every verse or two. And it was just a sweet thing. And then I got a note from PJ the next day that Paula had died. And she was just a dear friend, and I'm going to miss her very much, and I already miss her very much. So we have some other people to call up today, and the first is Joan Nightingale.
Okay.
And would you like some professional advice? Don't screw up.
I thought you were going to say, don't fall down.
You got
this, Joe.
Wow, I don't know. No, I thought I was pretty tall, but this isn't going to work too well. Anyway, I had to write it down because my words, thank you. Yes, that's much more comfortable. Anyway, I had to go and write these things down because I get to talking and I forget. Would you believe?
No.
And anyway, and there wasn't a time that I remember coming out of Paula's house that I didn't feel smiling and ready to go. I mean, I might not have felt that way going in, but it was always, and if I'm echoing, I can step back. Anyway, so I started out with the writers, but that's just part of our life together, Paula's and mine. We met in the early 2000s as the Country Roads Writing Group began. The class was structured, often attended by professionals, and who strongly critiqued our work, which didn't suit several, including our Paula. We brought our own little stories to read. I most often felt too intimidated to share, but not Paula. She came to read, and by golly, to her story, and she read them. Boy, did she. This never changed about our Paula. In writing class, It didn't matter if there was a subject given, she wrote, and she wrote on what she wanted to write. And she talked as long as she wanted to talk. And we listened as long as she talked. So anyway, that never changed with our Paula, ever. And the writers added a few things. And in the group, most of them didn't know Paula back too many years, but she finished, this is one person. When she finished her story, we always wanted to know more. Her stories were not always true, but and we didn't even question her, but it was pretty evident sometimes after you knew Paula. More than once, we were so poor, this was one of her quotes, we were so poor, there was no money for milk. So that was one of her things, and she said this over and several times. Many times she said, I never want to go out of my house without makeup on. She says, what are people going to think? Okay. And she never did. And she said, don't leave the house unhappy. And she never let she says, don't let anybody know it. So she was always giving me a little bit of advice along the way. And of course, I needed it all I could get. And she was a very flamboyant, as you know her, and everybody has to know that about Paula. She was a fearless actress. Didn't matter what she wanted to do, she was going to do it. And she was never shy, and she lived to be on stage. She was very extemporaneous. What she wrote, what she said, how she made us feel as she told her weekly story was a true, everlasting experience. And I remember her last time on stage, we finished with the show, and she was a hat lady. So I said, oh, Paula, do you need a ride home? Oh, no. She said, I brought my cart. And I said, but she says, I need some help finding the cart. So she said, we got outside, out over here. She looked around and she said, maybe I need a new cart. She said, and around here, people leave their keys in because they're all the same, so what the heck, you know. So I said, well, you want a new one? And I said, after you get that cart, I said, how about getting home? Oh, she says, I've been going home for years around here. She said, I just need to find that dang cart, only she didn't say dang. And she was the last play was when she was doing this. But one time, and I have to tell this to you because it really got to me in more ways than one. She came over and she says, we're going to do a play. And I said, a play? And she said, well, for Red Hats, we're going to entertain this month. I said, you and I? I said, what are we doing? And she said, I'll let you know. She said, I want to be a doctor, so I'm going to be a doctor. And I said, okay, you're going to be the patient. Oh, all right, and what do I have? What kind of a problem? Oh, you'll figure it out. And I said, okay. We got here ready to go on stage, and she said, you don't decide I don't want to be a doctor. I'm going to be the patient. And I said, oh, really? I said, and how's this going to work? Oh, you're going to catch on right away, she said. And I'm telling you, as the doctor, finally, she had several maladies that entertained the women completely. And she went into great detail about some of them. And so finally, we had to cut her off and say, you got to have maybe a little Geritol and a couple aspirin every night, dear. And she said, oh, all right, if I have to, I have to. I said, yeah, but I think you have to. But anyway, that was our Paula. She'd love to be up here, center stage, no matter what and I could go on, but I won't. But you know, so there was nothing ever sad about our Paula when she was on stage. She was an upper.
Yeah.
Feels like she should be back there miming while we talk.
Yes.
So her dear friend Nancy Nix is ill today, but she has sent her daughter Michaela McVeigh to give her remarks for her.
I have swimmer's ears, so my ears are plugged up, so my voice might be very loud without the microphone already. I got to know Paula a little bit just by her being friends with my mom. I come down in the winters for a few weeks, and I would wake up in the morning and my mom would be gone, and I'd text her and be like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm at Paula's." So it was, they were always visiting back and forth, and so I got to know her a little bit. And my mom was very bummed out that she's under the weather and couldn't say what she wanted to say, but she wrote it all down for me because she was in the creative writing class like Paula. She liked to act like Paula. So all this is from Nancy Nix, and I offered to read it for her. So, I am so sad that I could not attend the celebration of life for my dear friend Paula and join in the honor of memorializing the way this incredible woman lived her life. Paula affected hundreds of lives, many who are in this room today. Every time I think of Paula, I hear in my mind, "If you knew Paula like I knew Paula, oh, 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 what a gal," because she was quite a gal. I was introduced to Paula about 7 or 8 years ago by my baby sister, Joyce Brown. She said Paula had invited her and her 2 sisters, me and our older sister, Sue Morin, to a crazy hat party at her house. I fashioned a tinfoil hat and went to the party with my sisters, not knowing what to expect. There, in the middle of the room, holding everyone's attention, was a little elf of a lady with a beautiful blue eyes, a gorgeous smile, and age undetermined. She was the cutest thing I had ever seen. And like everyone else in the room, I was immediately captivated. We had a grand time. I won the hat contest, and Paula and I became fast friends. We had so much in common. We both loved writing. She was a legend in our writing class, acting, and we were both devout Christians. We started sitting together in church, going to lunch, and visiting back and forth. The few times we got together with our husbands, we always had a good time. I never tired of hearing of her life. She was like an onion, one layer peeled away, only to find another more fascinating one to take its place. I was in total awe to see where she had come from and all the things that she had done in her life. From factory work to being an interior decorator for yachts, for Pete's sake. I mean, who does that? But what really astonished me was the nonchalant way she assumed that everyone had experienced the same extraordinary life that she had. She did not see herself as the charismatic, luminous, talented, loving woman that she was. And that is a big reason why so many people were drawn to her. And everyone felt like her friend. They were the only person in the room, and that they had her full attention. Paula did not have a jealous bone in her body. As multi-talented as she was herself, when she saw someone else's talent, she openly admired it. When Paula's husband Jerry passed, a small part of her light was extinguished. She was still her same sweet, wonderful self, but that part of her heart that had lived for Jerry, well, he took it with him when he left. I was unable to be here at that time, but as usual, her Country Roads family, and especially men's ministry, in which Jerry had been so active, rose up to support her. And of course, her beloved daughters, whom she loved so very, very, very much. A funny little incident we shared, there's many of those. A few years back, Paula had asked me to help clean her freezer and then put it in portions so she could just take it out and have a meal. After 2 days, I had everything all portioned out and cooked, and I was putting it back into her freezer. But all of a sudden, she says, in that charming southern accent of hers, "Honey, who do you think is going to eat all of that?" I just looked at her and replied, "Well, I was hoping you, Paula." And she shook her head, laid her hand on my arm and said, "Well, I don't know. I haven't got just but one set of chompers." You know, and I don't know why that struck us as so funny. I don't know, but we must have laughed for a half an hour. So that was what was great about Paula. She could make you laugh just by being herself. I found out in March of 2023 that she was in kidney failure. I couldn't believe it. And she told me she was just as surprised as I was. My husband had taken a turn for the worse, and we could not come for the 23-24 season. My sisters kept me updated of Paula's condition. Paula would text me encouraging posts when she was up to it. And then my husband passed in late April 24. My sister Joyce told Paula, who immediately texted me her condolences. There she was with a terminal diagnosis, worried about my well-being. But that was Paula. More than anything, I wanted to see Paula one more time. But my plans to move in September were pretty much set in stone, and Paula passed away just a few weeks before I arrived. It is great to be back at Country Roads as a full-time resident. It's good to see old friends, make new friends, resume activities, and enjoy the sunshine. But something will always be missing for me and many others, that vibrant sparkle that gives life warmth, class, and always, always that unmatched love for others. How fortunate is heaven to have acquired you, Paula, and how happy you and Jerry must be to be reunited. Give Cecil a big hug from me. I don't know when, but I will see you again, my friend.
Nice.
PJ, come on up. I took Nancy Nix's daughter out of order. You're going to have to repeat it again after the parent comes up and does it.
Well, good afternoon. What a beautiful day to honor Paula. And my name's Karen Fisher. I now live in California, but Paula and I were friends for 20 years. And something that comes to mind is about 5 years ago, and you know, she was 88 at that time. She and I decided to join Toastmasters in Yuma. Now, Toastmasters, you go there and you learn how to stand in front of people and speak and, you know, be able to talk without stuttering and so on. And just learn how to talk. Well, I don't know why we were going. Paula obviously knew how to talk in front of people. She did that all the time. But when we went, most people were in their 30s and 40s, and then there was Paula and I. And what you do when you go to Toastmasters is they have an ad lib time where they might say, you come up behind the pulpit and they say umbrellas, and you're supposed to start talking for 2 minutes about umbrellas. Or they might say helicopter, and you're supposed to talk for 2 minutes, you know, on the spot, just start talking about something. Well, she and I, you know, we could do that hands down, you know. However, every few weeks, one person would speak for 15 or 20 minutes and tell a story. And you know, they were all, most everybody in their 30s and 40s, but they loved it when it was Paula's turn. Because she would tell a story like about her honeymoon. And she would tell the story, let me tell you. You know, they would just, or she would tell a story about her 4 girls when they were teenagers. She really knew how to make people laugh. And all of you who know her know that that is so much the case. We were also in many shows together here, as Joe was in charge of many of them. And Paula and I used to laugh because we'd go to auditions and we almost always got in, and we laughed because we don't know how to sing, we didn't know how to dance, but somehow we knew how to act silly and goofy, and therefore they let us come onto the show. We did the Dean Martin show and Showboat and different ones, and so thank you, Joe, for accepting us, because most of them could sing or dance or have talent. One time, she invited a few couples over to her house, my husband and I and a few other couples, and the party was going to be, you had to dress as a bum and come and pretend that you live under a bridge. Oh. And we were going to eat with our hands, And so all the couples that came, we cooperate with her. So we all came dressed like bums, and but she overdoes everything, and so she was great. Jerry just kind of shook his head, looking at everybody, because, he didn't join into that so much, but we all joined into it, and she was so genuine in the way she would do a party or something, We all came dressed like bums, and we ate with our hands, and we did we each were supposed to tell a story of why we ended up under a bridge. And so it was very fun. She's such a dear friend. I will miss her so much, such a wonderful friend that she was to me. About 3 years ago, so she would have been 90, I live in California now, and I received in the mail a big painting like this that she had painted for me. And it was of a lady in Paris. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful she had painted it for me. Now, many of you know that she painted. In the 20 years I knew her, I never knew she painted. And so it was so wonderful. And I think all of us know she has many talents. But I think that she had many talents that none of us even knew about, because her life was so full that way. I will miss her so much, and I thank the family for letting me share a few words. I will miss her.
I never realized how good her acting chops were until April of 2023, when I went to the auditions for the Honeymoon Cruise Show. Dennis Miller, you'll remember this show because that's where you told the story about the Scottish bricklayer, which would not be at all appropriate for this audience. But her audition was just amazing. I mean, this is clearly professional quality acting that she did. Okay, PJ, are you ready?
Well, I'm not sick at home, but I wrote it down anyway, so I'm going to have to read what I wrote because I'll never remember it otherwise, so forgive me for that. Thank you, Country Roads friends, for being here today to remember my mom. I'm PJ Lowry, I'm the eldest. PJ stands for Paula Jean. I became Paula Jean when my boyfriend called and asked for Paula. My husband Bob is home in Vacaville. My sister Pamela Clark is here with her husband Don Polson and her son Colby Clark. Our sisters Patricia from Albuquerque and Peggy from Rhode Island could not be here, but they also send their appreciation for your attendance. My mom was born Pauline. Her sisters called her Pud. Dad called her Trixie. I called her Mamoose. Her grandsons called her Granny Grape. She played Jasmine in the high school play. You all knew her as Paula. And now you know all of her passwords. From before Mom died, there was no question as to whether to hold her memorial in Country Roads Ballroom or at her internment. In fact, she gave us a list of speakers, a song request, and not to have the service until all the snowbirds got here. So here we are, 155 days later, after her death, celebrating her in the way she asked. To be here today, sharing the love and laughter that she brought to our lives, it is an honor and a blessing to me. I loved her very much. We want to thank our guests for sharing their stories and hope that many of you will share your stories when there's an open mic. On the back of the program today is a barcode where you can link to the information on their obituaries at the Sacramento VA Cemetery. Also on the program it says that the audience can participate in Amazing Grace, but we've moved it to a solo with her mime in the background. So we wanted to do that as the final song. And then there will be a prayer following by Pastor Buddy. Familiar to the Country Roads Writing Group, she would open remarks with, "I took the first thing that smoked out of Princeton after I graduated high school." She was from a small northern Missouri town, population 1,503 in 1950. Her dad was a farmer, her mother a nurse at the local hospital. Mom loved school and learning. She was a thespian in high school. She played the drums in the Princeton Tigers high school band. There's pictures in her book in the back. Can you imagine a 4'11" girl with a drum bigger than her and a uniform with a hat so big she had to wear it cocked to the side? She aspired for a larger stage and more action and moved to Kansas City, where she met Dad at a business college. Dad had to leave and finish his war service in Korea. He arrived home the summer of 1951 and they began their grand adventure. Both were from large families and they had us girls in pretty rapid succession. It was Paula, Peggy, and Patty. Then a mere 8 years later, here came our baby Pam. So there's 13 years between Pamela and I. So we have almost a generation between just the girls. Once the family was raised and on their own, Mom and Dad began their RV travels. In the late 80s, they found country roads in their RV travels. They rented a season or two in 1989, and then they moved to lot 587 as snowbirds. They had lived across the street from Bob and Alice Raines, and they were, at the time, they were the king and queen of country roads winter ball. I don't know if you still do that here or not. In those days, the Raines had the only golf cart in the park. So it's hard for me to even believe. In 1992, Mom wanted a more permanent living situation and moved into Lot 6. The prior owners were Dave and Naomi Mulhern, and I don't know if it was at that time or before that he had been the pastor of the Country Road Church here. It is Lot 6 where there were legendary walk-in shops. And it seemed to me this park is about the same size as Princeton, her hometown. And now she is home, and she knows everyone, and she's thriving. She participated in stuff. She was in the drama club. The annual talent shows were the highlight of her season. And my favorite was, and I can't remember his first name, but I think his last name was Stanton. And they did a skit, and they were on the Wells Fargo Gold Coach, and they were cracking the whip and going down the dirt road, and there were robbers behind them coming up. And he kept telling her, he says, "Shoot him, shoot him." And she says, "I can't shoot him," you know. And when I saw that, I just laughed. I just thought it was the funniest skit anyone had ever written, because it was written for her. She loved doing skits and dressing up as a hillbilly or a country star. She was also in creative writing. And jealously, the writing club members know more about our family than we do. My mom loved to write about her experiences, her fear of storms, snakes, and big dogs. She loved to write about hope, her silliness, her faith, and a special twist when the week's topic allowed. She was also in Women's Fellowship. Do you know they meet at O Dark 30?
Yes.
They meet early with special welcoming greetings and songs. They fill out prayer cards for those needing support as they heal. I received several. With your mother, there's no HIPAA privacy. I talked to her on the phone and she'd say, "Well, you're going to be getting a prayer card." I says, "Mom, I just..." Their guest speakers are so accomplished and share their expertises with the group. She volunteered for so many things. Her early badges were very long. In those days, your badge had rungs for each volunteer event you participated in, and they cascaded down. If you were new in the park, you knew who to ask if you had any questions. She loved poetry, art, and started Country Roads Clown Troupe number 222. The troupe club attended the Barnes & Bailey Clown College training in Laughlin, California, and Lollipop, Classy, Bashful, Bubbles, et al., I can't remember all their names, volunteered and face painted all over Yuma for the Marines, hospitals, Crossroads Mission, and church functions. In later years, she learned Christian mime. She mimed to Christian songs such as "Eye on the Sparrow," "Old Rugged Cross," and "Amazing Grace." She performed in several states at churches where they traveled. Mom's friends spanned 4 generations in this park. Many of you remember Harold and Rose, Jim and Mabel, Lucille, Alice and Bob, Doug Ladd, Dolores and Ike, Nancy and Bill, and so many others. I work as a volunteer with the Northern California Golf Association, and one of our tournament officials, Cheryl McCullough, lives in Country Roads in the winter. I told my mom, I says, do you know Cheryl? She says, well, no, I don't know her, but I knew her mom. Small world. Many of Mom's friends are here today, and also children of her old friends, and then there's the new generation that does things differently. She kept saying, they sure don't do things I remember doing. Dancing lessons, karaoke, pickleball, and howling at the moon. I don't know why I'm their friends, but I am. And there are just so many talented people in this park. Our family was never one to have just only mom, dad, and 4 girls at home. We had visitors in our home living with us or dining with us for as early as I can remember. Cousins, aunts, and friends lived with us from time to time. Once Mom and Dad moved to Country Roads, Mom's friends list exploded, as well as her guest list. One Thanksgiving, I was helping her and Dad prepare. Mom says, you know, I'd like to have another couple join us for Thanksgiving. And Dad says, that'll be great. By the time she was finished, we had 20 for dinner. This was not an isolated example. Her guest list was always growing. You know this is the way it's done in Country Roads. Neighbors are always coming by with food or inviting them to dinner. One other Thanksgiving, I remember eating deep-fried turkey and beanbag toss on Lot 44. Mom was always on the bleeding edge of technology. Phones, computer, laptop, tablets, all with every program that anybody solicited her to join. She was always tracking down someone in the park to help her. She would call me for tech support on things I knew nothing about. So we tried to keep track of her passwords for her growing list of things she signed up for. She loved ordering glasses off of Facebook and Amazon and many trips to Alcodonas. I gave a tote bag full of reading glasses away when she passed. It was her favorite prop for her look of the day. I used to call Mom at 5 o'clock every day. If she wasn't there, I would give her a little while, and if she didn't surface, then I'd send out a search party. She loved visiting and going to and from the trash. So between finding new items on the wall and her visiting, she got waylaid many nights. A big shout out to her neighbor Sherry. She was eyes on and provided much support and communication to us in Mom's final years. I was always current on the latest happenings in the park, even though I lived in Vacaville. I knew as much as any other neighbor about the current events, since she had just gotten back from the trash. We would talk about her writing topics. We would discuss different memories that might fit the topic. She had such a full life, it wasn't too hard to come up with an interesting story. Later in the evening, she would love to sit out front of Lot 6 in her swing and visit with my sister Pamela and Dawn, who live across the street, and the stream of people who walked by. In her last days were what we called the long goodbye. Pamela and I were not prepared for it, as Pamela called, this is the hard part. We tag teamed the best we could until we couldn't, and we needed help. Hospice of Yuma and Trina from TLC helped us keep her at Lot 6 for as long as possible. There were so many visitors and repeat cards and letters. Thank you all for your letters and your long goodbyes and the love that you showed to her. A shout out to Sean, Pastor Buddy, and Joyce for the special visits in her final days. They made her last few days very special. Mom was our best friend and maybe yours. In our family, whomever you are with is your favorite. We learned this from our grandmother. Comparing notes at her funeral, we all shared that we were her favorite, which came as a shock to each of us. So it stuck. Whenever we get together, we are always with our favorite. She is sorely missed by her family and her many friends. The theater went dark August 3rd for our family. Mom had a poem for everything. A family gathering, a special person, a visit. She wrote about it. She won a few awards for her efforts, and it was one of her favorite hobbies. Imagine, Paula, Peggy, Patty, Pam picked a peck of pickled peppers. And then you can finish that. It goes on and on and on. She got better after that. In closing, I would like to share a poem that she won an award for from the National Library of Poetry in 1996. It was published in the Country Roads Courier at the time. It's called Campground in the Sky. Do you have a space for me to park my RV in the big campground in the sky? I have made my reservation for this long-awaited vacation to my happy destination by and by. My time on the highway of life has had many a conflict and many a strife. As I am placed on the gurney for my long-awaited journey, I'll travel over the streets of gold to join the loved ones I long to hold and see the familiar faces of friends of various spaces. We will share the memories of the roads that we have trod on the way to our long-awaited campground to see the face of God.
Nice.
Thank you, PJ. Years ago, there was a series on PBS. It was about death and dying, and I remember one of the people they interviewed said there's only two things that people want in life. One is to have a good life, and the other is to have a good death. And I think because of your family, she had both a good life and a very good death. So, Larry, are you ready to come up? And Nancy at the keyboard.
I met Paula after arriving here at Country Roads with Bonnie, my wife. She's been here 25 years. We were married by Pastor Buddy 9 years ago. So I started doing some solo work for the church. And every day I would see this little short lady come in. She's all dressed up. She's wearing a hat. And I'm thinking, man, that's how I used to see it when I went to church with my parents 70 years ago. Always dressed for church. And after the first time I did a solo for church, and I'm walking out, she comes up to me and introduces herself. I introduced myself, and Bonnie already knew Paula. And she says, oh my gosh, sis, I don't want to thank you so much. And a couple more months went by. Every week she walked through that door, she would spy me and come up. Are you singing today? I said, not this time, maybe later. Eventually, I think it was here about 4 or 5 months, I sang a couple more times. And then she approached me and said, would you be willing to do a mime with me? You sing and I'll mime. I said, sure, I'd love that. That was really something new for me, because I'd never seen anybody do it, let alone in a church. And so I didn't know what to really expect, but we went ahead and did it. She walks into the foyer, and here she is, all decked out in her mind. White gloves and a suit, I mean the whole thing. And the first one we did, 2 of them that we did together are the 2 that I'm doing today. The first one was the old rugged cross. So she got on the stage, I was on the floor, and we did the old rugged cross. And I was so impressed. And as time went on, I learned more about who Paula was. How she was when she come in every Sunday and walked up to me and gave me the hug. And she was just that type of person. For the short years that I knew her, never saw her not smile. Never heard her not say a kind word to somebody. And as I got to know her, the more I really had a love for her. And before we left home last year, we left in May. So I asked PJ if I could come over and see her before she went to the home. Because at that point in time, she was sleeping nearly 24 hours a day. So well, I took my CD player and my CDs, and we went over, and she's in bed, and so Bonnie said something to her. She says, "Oh, my Larry's here." And she had this smile and didn't open her eyes, but she knew enough to who I was. And every time I do these songs, she's here with me. She's in my mind. Yeah, I just can't let go. That's the type of person that she was, the type of friendship. It was not hard to be a friend with her. She was wonderful. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on His goodness, I lose my doubt and fear. Though by the path He leadeth, and one step I may see, His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me.
pastor buddy, you'll get to follow that. We'll have audience reflections after the eulogy.
I really think we don't have this person. I've got a speaker here, but I'm not working. Hello. Can you help me back there? No?
You can unwire this mic?
No?
Thank you, Larry and Nancy. I rather suspect, as you were singing, Paula, knowing it was coming up, gathered people around them in heaven and mine your song. When Paula lived in our park, she delightfully and powerfully mined hymns. And one of her favorites we have just heard, his eye is on the sparrow. And I know he watches me. And that is not all. Paula not only mined, Paula modeled in her life the hymn, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. And Paula lived it. When she could hardly walk, she rode her cart to church. At times, Sandy and I would follow her home. And when Paula struggled, really struggled to get out of the cart, we helped her get into her house. And she was just full of thankfulness. That was Paula being Paula. On August the 3rd, an angel transported Paula on the trip of her life up past the moon. And knowing Paula, my guess is that she probably asked the angel to stop at the moon so she could get out and be the first woman to walk on the moon without a spaceship. Then on past the sun, the stars, the galaxies, right through heaven's pearly gate. What a beautiful trip that was, and will be for you also, if you are a believer. Paula's goodbye down here was her hello up there. Her separation down here was her reunion with Sharon and with all of her believing family and friends up there. in Corinthians chapter 15 reminds us that Paula's mortality became immortal. Her perishable became imperishable. Her weakness became power. Her death was swallowed up into a victorious life. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 54. With no problems, no appointments, no sickness, no bills to pay, no disappointments, no fatigue, no problem in walking, no despair, and no hatred, but love always for everyone. For Paul, life was worth living down here on earth because she had a place prepared for her up there in heaven. Jesus promised that in John chapter 14, verse 2. The devil did not like that. Heaven is a prepared place for prepared people. And Paula will welcome you as a believer when you get through heaven's gate. And she may say, welcome to your new eternal home. What in the world, church is so loud? That's Paula. Being Paula.
Thank you, Pastor Buddy. Now's the time where you get to share some of your favorite memories. And I don't want it to be like the church where the pastor had to preside over a celebration of life on his first day. And he said, well, how am I going to do that? I don't even know the deceased. I said, you'll have to wing it. And they said, and so he appealed to the audience, help me. And nobody raised their hand. Nobody said anything. Come on, you have to help me. Surely somebody can say something good about the deceased. And a voice from the back says, his brother was worse. I have one hand. The first hand was back here.
Well, I'm really honored to have been asked to read words of memorial from Joyce Lucas. Many of you know her as Joyce Brown. And she said this, she's in Florida now, so excuse me while I turn pages here. She writes, Paula was truly an amazing human being. She did not think she was worthy, as she was very humble, but she was a crown jewel. Paula had a variety of talents, all wrapped up into one tiny person with a huge personality. She wore a coat of many colors, and I love her. She was a wife, a mother, a friend, a survivor, an artist, a designer, an understanding companion, and a child of God. Paula was a lover of people, places, and things, and she had a humble grasp on what is truly important in life. Through the later years, she marveled at who Jesus is and that he had come to personally save her. We love to share and talk about our Lord. Many folks do not understand the affection that lies within, but Jesus tied our hearts together. We'd laugh together, and I'd look at her creations, her artistry, some newly acquired items, and things she'd restored and given new life. I really enjoyed Paula as a human being, and I know I'll see her again someday, and I guess that too was the basis of our kinship and the center of our understanding. We'd help each other out. We'd talk fondly about our Jerrys. We supported one another emotionally and physically. Paula was always concerned for other people. Give me a minute here. And I know she prayed for them. She loved her family deeply, and I know she missed Jerry very much. When she became ill, I think the Energizer bunny, and here she was, slowed down. I remember her innocently looking up at me from her hospital bed, the bed from which she later arose to meet our Lord. She looked at me seriously in my eyes and said innocently, "Do you know that I'm dying?" What a sweetheart. I just looked back at her and said, "Yes, Paula, I do know." She seemed a little fearful, so I began to tell her what the Bible says about life on the other side. The beauty, the joy, the richness, the music, the fact that there was no night there, the peace and love of Jesus. You could see her visibly relax as she began to accept her new venture. I can only imagine that she's in heaven, entertaining, twirling, and dancing in her new fashionista outfits. Looking adorable, painting, creating, and being loved by those she encounters. That is how I will always remember Paula. I pray for peace and love for her children, as I know that Paula's prayer as well. Save a place for me, Paula. I'll join you, love, Joyce. I also just wanted to share this one little incident that happened just this past year in 2024. I took Paula to the doctor in January, and she had to have some blood drawn. And we were at the clinic, and the gal at the desk asked for her driver's license. So she got them out and gave them to her, and she said, "This is the same license you gave me last time you were here." And she goes, "Yes, it is." And the gal said to her, "Well, this license expires in 2 weeks," because her birthday was January 14, so we were 2 weeks prior to that, right after the first of the year. And she looked at me and she said, "I sure hope you have time, because I have to get my license renewed today." And I said to her, "Paula, you just told me you didn't drive for 6 months. Haven't driven for the last 6 months." And she goes, "I know, but I'm going to drive again." So right after that, we went to the MSM office, the knockoff of the DOL or whatever that is. And anyway, she comes walking in there with her walker, and it was empty. There was no one in there. Everybody's looking at her, and she walks up to this young man and says, I have to get my license renewed. And I could just hear the snicker around the room, I just stood there. And she talked to him, and she did what she had to do. And he said, "Okay, let's go take your picture." So over we went to take a picture. He took a picture. She asked if she could see it. And she said, "That's not good enough. Let's do another one." We did 4 before one was acceptable. Now, who gets by with that at the DOL? I don't know. But anyway, we got a big kick out of that. She's a jewel. She was so much fun, even then.
Thank you.
Paula had lost her Jerry, and I had lost my Kitty. And one Sunday, she came up to me, asked how I was doing, and I said, "Well, I'm getting by, but Sundays are hard for me." I said, "I go home to an empty house and I eat by myself." She says, "Well, we've got to do something about that." So thankfully, I thought about it a little bit during church, and after church I says, let's go do it. Let's go have dinner together. So we did. Went to the Black Bear and had a lovely meal and a wonderful conversation. And I went to get the check, and the waitress said, your bill has been paid. Who paid it? Well, there was a couple close to us, and they paid your bill. And Paula says, Nancy, she says, let's go to Olive Garden next week. Maybe we can score again.
Well, Paula used to come in to pottery just to see what we were doing. So one day she comes in and she has a bandana around her head. She's got a ring in her nose. She's got dangly earrings. I can't remember what this looked like, but it must have been wild. So I says, Paula, what are you doing? She says, well, she said, somebody at Creative Writing told me that I didn't dress my age. So I am going to just give her a whirl today.
Funny. That would be Paula.
Oh, come on, we have more than 3 stories about Paula out there.
Well, I got to meet Paula when her yard needed a little assistance, so I went over there and kind of cleaned up the yard, and all of a sudden we developed a friendship that I think many of you have. And it was pretty awesome to go over. But at the end, with hospice there, I'd go over there a few times, and we'd sit and talk. And one day she said, you know, I thought I was supposed to be going home tonight, meeting heaven. And she said, yeah, I got up, I laid on that couch like this, and I said, I'm ready, Lord. And he didn't take me. I don't understand. All I could do is just say a bust a gut. Now that's a laugh. And we're sitting, well, she was in the bed laying and in the front room. And she would decide she needed to go to sleep. And so she said, I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep. And it was just like that, boom. I'm going out to the caregiver, I guess it's time for me to go home.
So we have more stories we can share over some refreshment, I think. But right now we're going to, Esther, somebody's raising their hand. Where? Over there. I'm on my way.
I don't know if I can do this without crying, but I'm going to try it. I moved here, I think this is my 8th year here, and one of my very first meetings of people was when Paula invited me to that hat party that Karen early spoke about. That was the most fun I had in my entire life. I'm not a hat wearer. I had no hats. So I went to Goodwill after Goodwill searching for a hat. Then I had to tell a story about that hat. So I was able to tell everyone how I searched high and I heard search low and I couldn't find a hat. I kept searching and searching. I finally found a hat. The story I made up about the hat was hilarious. They thought it was so funny, but it was absolutely the truth. I became friends with Paula since then, so I think I've was friends with Paula for about 7 years. I had her numerous times at my house for dinners, barbecues and things I had. I got to know her daughter, Pam, and Pam and I became close. And then I met PJ, and this past, whenever PJ was here cleaning at her mom's house, she called me up and said, Diana, I need you to come over and get this art stuff from my mom. I want you to have it. So I went over, she loaded me up with all of this stuff. I thought, where am I going to put this? But I have the most beautiful picture of Paula in her clown costume that I absolutely adore. And it just breaks my heart that I didn't know her longer.
So I like to make soups. There was a great cookbook called the Silver Palette Cookbook. It had the best soup recipes in it. And they were unusual soups. So I had made some carrot and orange soup and decided to take some to Paula. And she calls me up after she eats and she goes, that was delicious. And I said, wait till you try my peppermint pea soup. She goes, yuck. No, thank you. So that's my one regret of my relationship with Paula. She never got to try my peppermint and pea soup. So Larry, come on up and sing Amazing Grace for us, and we'll watch Paula mime to it on the screens.
Get it up here where I can see. Bifocals don't work very good. This, some of you have heard this version. It's not the version that you are familiar with. It's a little bit different, but my pianist and I really like it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. I once was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and that same grace my fears relieve. How precious 'tis that grace appear, the hour when I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already
That was beautiful, Larry. And now Pastor Buddy with a closing prayer.
Thank you, Father, for giving us your gift of Paula, and that we are able to know her. And Father, many people have come long distances to be here, and others short distances. So Father, please see to it that they get home safely. And those who come from short distances but can hardly walk, put strength into their legs, Father. And now, Father, as we are about to eat, come and join us at each table and each chair. As we share food and friends and family. That's my request to you, Father, in the name and the life of your Son, Jesus, and the power of your Spirit. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Pastor Buddy, and thank you all for coming. Please help yourself to some refreshment in the back and share stories about Paula with each other. Sit down, Larry, I'm not through talking.
Yes, sir.
And please try and eat about 20% more than you normally would, because they ordered enough food for about 50% more people than we have here. And we don't want too many take-home plates. PJ.
I brought foil and Ziploc bags if anyone needs one.
Okay. Eat. Eat, talk, and share.
Oh, my goodness. But I didn't and say hi to someone. Hi, Cheryl.